They say betrayal stings most when you never saw it coming, but I did. I saw it in the little things. In moments she thought I wasn't watching, and that's what made it worse. My name is Jack Wallace. I served 20 years in the Army, deployed to 3 continents, operated under some of the most dangerous conditions a soldier can imagine. I've faced rocket fire, drone ambushes, IEDs, but nothing prepared me for the explosion that went off in my life back home. This isn't just a war story. This is what happens when the battlefield follows you home and it's dressed like someone you used to love. The morning I left for Qatar, the air at Fort Bragg was thick and cold. It was early January. My boots crunched over frost while my thoughts spiraled somewhere else entirely. Not toward war, but toward Heather. She stood with her arms crossed, bundled up in a tan parka she hadn't worn in years. Her scarf was too perfect, her makeup done like she was heading to brunch, not sending off her husband to another desert deployment. "Be safe, okay?" she said flatly. Her tone was clipped, like she was asking the barista to remember no whipped cream this time. "I'll be back before you know it," I said, trying to catch her eye. She avoided it. When I reached out for a hug, she let me. But it felt robotic, like muscle memory, a reflex she didn't want to commit to. I boarded that transport plane knowing something had shifted, something permanent. Let me rewind. Because it didn't always start this way. We met during a July community fundraiser in Raleigh. I was just back from a 9-month tour in Kandahar. Still lean, still edgy. I wasn't looking for anything serious. Just a beer and a sense of normal. Heather worked the dental outreach booth, her smile doing more PR than the banner behind her. Her laugh was infectious. Her eyes stayed locked on yours when you talked, like whatever you had to say actually mattered. She was sunshine in a thunderstorm, or at least that's how it felt then. We dated 3 months, moved in after 6, married within a year. Heather didn't come from a military family. Her dad was a bank manager, her mom, a retired school teacher. When I told them I was career Army, her father smiled politely like I'd said I was a magician. But Heather, back then, said she admired my purpose, said I gave her stability, security, direction. We bought a house in the quiet end of Charlotte. Nothing fancy, but the kind of place where dogs bark and sprinklers hiss in the summer. I built the back deck myself. She painted the hallway walls a soft lavender she found on Pinterest. Life was good until it wasn't. Deployment changes you. Not in the ways movies tell you. It's not all nightmares and screaming into pillows. Sometimes the change is quieter. You stop asking for things. You stop expecting comfort. You stop noticing that you've become the background in someone else's story. 3 years into our marriage, Heather started working at a dental clinic downtown. Long hours, new friends. A gym membership she barely used. Her schedule started shifting. So did the way she looked at me, or didn't. She stopped staying up for my calls, stopped leaving sticky notes on the mirror like she used to, stopped saying "I love you" without needing to be prompted. At first, I blamed myself. I was gone a lot. Maybe I was too tired. Too focused on the next promotion, too proud to admit I didn't know how to reconnect with the woman I once couldn't stop touching. But I started noticing things. Her phone never left her side, always face down, always locked. She changed her email password and said it was for work compliance. She wore perfume to girls' night, but came back without a trace of alcohol. Then there were the gym bags, always packed, barely touched. I confronted none of it. I was raised in a house where men don't snoop, where accusations without proof are the quickest way to ruin a bond. So I didn't snoop. I prepared. 6 months before deployment, I opened a new bank account, started shifting 20% of my monthly pay there. Not enough to be noticed, but enough to be ready. Rented a climate-controlled storage unit under a friend's name. Moved every important document into it: marriage license, birth certificate, VA paperwork, the deed to the house, which thanks to the VA loan was in my name only. Tucked in there too were my grandfather's watch and my mom's silver necklace. I didn't know what I was guarding against back then, but my gut did. And in the military, you learn fast. Trust your gut or it might get you killed. The night before I deployed, we had dinner, just the two of us. Pasta, candlelight, it felt rehearsed. Halfway through her glass of wine, Heather said, "Do you think you'll re-up again?" I smiled. "Maybe. This is what I'm good at." "It's who I am." She didn't smile back, just nodded and looked down at her plate. Later that night, lying in bed, I held her. She didn't pull away, but she didn't hold me back. That's when I knew some part of her had already left. And some part of me had already started preparing for war. 2 weeks into deployment, it happened. I had just finished a 14-hour shift overseeing convoy logistics under blistering heat. My uniform was caked in sand and sweat, and I'd barely sat down in the DFAC when my laptop pinged. One email, subject line, "Let's be adults about this." Heather, I knew. I clicked. 3 sentences. "I've filed for divorce. I've moved the money. I'm with someone else now." That was it. No explanation. No apology, just a clinical detonation of a 13-year marriage delivered via PDF. I stared at the screen. Read it 3 times. My fork was still hovering above the mystery meat on my tray. The chatter around me faded to static. My reply was one word, understood. Then I closed the laptop, got up, walked into the communal showers and let the water run until it was ice cold. My bunkmate Simmons noticed something was off that night. "You good, man?" he asked, not even looking up from his dog-eared copy of American Sniper. "Just some stuff back home." He nodded. In the Army, that was all the explanation required. You didn't ask unless invited. But inside me, something had cracked, and through that crack, strategy began to leak. That night, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Mason, though I didn't even know his name yet, just the shadow of him, a figure moving into my house, into my bed, into my life. By sunrise, I wasn't sad. I wasn't even angry. I was focused. I pulled out my notebook and started a new mission briefing. This one wasn't stamped by any military branch. It was just me. Operation Clarity. Objectives: assess asset exposure, confirm legal leverage, identify hostile actors, determine infiltration points, engage with tactical precision. The first hit came a week later. My banking app buzzed, $88,300 withdrawn. I opened the app. Our joint savings? Empty. My VA deposit buffer? Gone. Her name was on the account. I hadn't thought she'd do that. Turns out she'd been transferring money in small doses, probably so I wouldn't notice, but I did. I called the bank using the FOB's secure satellite line. After verification, the voice on the other end said, "Sir, all recent transfers were initiated by your wife." "Is there any flagged activity?" I asked. A pause. "There was an account opened 2 weeks ago. Large deposits. Recipient listed as M. Greer Capital Solutions." I blinked. "Who's M. Greer? We're not permitted to disclose third-party details unless subpoenaed." "Thanks," I said. "You've told me enough." That night, I accessed the security feed to our house. The system was connected to a cloud account I set up years ago after someone egged our front door. Heather probably forgot about it. I didn't. The cameras were still live. I watched a man walk our dog, Radar, my dog. He used my mug. Sat in my chair, wore my team sweatshirt. He kissed her. Right in the hallway, I hung our wedding photos, and she laughed. I didn't throw anything. Didn't punch the wall, didn't even curse. I just opened the laptop again. Wrote a new list: contact Marcus, secure legal line review, house deed and VA loan, cross-check refinance activity, protect military pension logins, identify M. Greer, and trace business connections. At 0500, I called Marcus from the base. "Tell me you're not joking," he said when I told him the basics. I wish I was. She forged documents? I don't know yet, but she took the money and the guys living in my house. I'll dig into the deed, check on title activity. Sit tight. Not planning to go anywhere, I said, but when I do, I'm coming home with a strategy. Over the next 10 days, Marcus sent me updates encrypted through secure military channels. He uncovered that Heather had filed a refinance application using my name and signature. The signature wasn't mine, it was a forgery, but a decent one. Close, but not close enough. Also listed on the application, Mason Greer. He wasn't just her new boyfriend, he was a convicted fraudster with a suspended financial license, 2 DUIs, and a pending investigation for real estate racketeering in Florida. Heather either didn't know or didn't care. Maybe that was the worst part. Marcus's last message read, "If you want to go nuclear, I can help. But you gotta tell me when." I looked at the camera feed again. They were laughing on the porch. I poured myself black coffee. Operation Clarity just became Operation Consequence. 2 months later, I touched down in North Carolina. No welcome home, no flags or kisses. Just cold wind and silence. I didn't tell Heather I was coming back early. Didn't even tell Marcus until I was already through customs. I checked into a motel 20 minutes outside Charlotte using an alias I'd used during field exercises. Spent the first night staring at the ceiling, letting the sound of cheap wall heating fill the room. In the morning, Marcus picked me up in a borrowed pickup that smelled like black coffee and gym socks. He handed me a file thicker than any mission brief I'd ever read. "This is everything," he said, "and it gets worse." Inside the folder were bank records, property deeds, notarized documents, each one a punch to the gut. Heather hadn't just forged my name on a refinance application, she'd also started prepping the house for a quick sale. My name was on every piece of paper, and every one of them had been abused. The buyer, a shell company, owned by Todd Bishop, a real estate agent with a history of quick flips, cash deals, and whispered trails of fraud. Worse, Todd and Mason had worked together before, 3 times in the past 18 months. Each case involved a woman divorcing or recently separated from a military spouse. This wasn't random, this was a pattern. I asked Marcus how deep it went. Deep enough that the FBI might be interested. "If you want me to talk to Ramirez, I can." Agent Ramirez. Former JAG investigator turned field agent. No nonsense, all results. "Not yet," I said. "Let's see how dirty this gets first." The next day we ran surveillance. Heather left the house at 8:45 a.m., drove to her dental office like everything was normal. Meanwhile, Mason showed up with Todd at 9:10. Marcus and I watched from across the street. "Think they're signing papers today?" Marcus asked. "No," I said. "They're staging. Watch." Sure enough, they pulled out brochures, a digital camera, even a clipboard with property notes. I recognized it all. They were prepping for a private listing, likely through cash-only buyers with no paper trail. I pulled out my phone and opened the cloud security feed. Interior mics picked up everything. Todd, "We'll list at $490, but accept $450. Buyers ready to move fast." Mason, "And the husband?" Todd, "He's overseas. Doesn't even know we're doing this." Marcus's jaw clenched. "You getting this?" "I'm streaming it live to a secure folder," I said. They're burying themselves. That night, I called Marcus again. "I want Ramirez involved." "Good," he said, "because she just called me." Apparently, the FBI had been monitoring Todd Bishop for months. My case wasn't the first, but it was the clearest. I had digital proof, financial records, and a web of fraudulent behavior. "I want to confront them," I said. "Not yet," Ramirez advised on speaker. "Let them keep talking. We'll move when we have conspiracy charges locked down." Heather texted me that night. "Heather, Jack, please, I didn't know it would go this far. Can we talk?" She knew I was back, probably saw someone near the house, or maybe guilt finally grew teeth. I didn't reply. The next morning, the FBI planted audio recorders in Heather's home. Disguised as part of the HVAC inspection Mason had conveniently scheduled for the fake buyers, everything was falling into place. Todd returned the next afternoon, this time with a contract. Mason signed. Heather hesitated. "I don't know if this is right," she said, voice barely above a whisper. "You want to get caught holding the bag?" Mason growled. "This deal moves, with or without you." That was it. That was what Ramirez needed. By 4 p.m., federal agents surrounded the property. Todd and Mason were cuffed within minutes. Heather stood on the porch crying. I didn't flinch, didn't speak. I just looked her in the eyes as they loaded Mason into a black SUV. She mouthed, I'm sorry. And for the first time in over a year, I felt something close to peace. The house was quiet now. Federal agents had swept through it like a storm the day before. Every drawer, file cabinet, even the vents, checked, documented, photographed. Heather had spent the night at her sister's. Mason and Todd were sitting in federal holding cells, waiting for the next chapter of their lives to be dictated by a courtroom. But my chapter, mine was just getting good. Agent Ramirez called me in the early morning. She sounded crisp, like she hadn't slept but didn't need to. They cracked. Which one? Both. I sat up straighter in the motel bed. What do you mean? Mason gave us a list of names, other women he's targeted. Heather wasn't the first. Todd filled in the business side, bank accounts, real estate flips, dirty appraisers, and a judge who's now under review. I whistled low. So this wasn't a scheme, it was a business model? Ramirez chuckled. Exactly. And your footage, your case, that was the nail in the coffin. I met with Ramirez later that day. She handed me a summary of the case they were building. 11 victims, all military families, all scammed using the same method: fake romantic involvement, forged paperwork, fast sell property flips, and vanishing cash. In 3 cases, homes were sold while the spouse was deployed, and the soldier didn't even know until they came home to an empty lot. That's not fraud, I said. That's war, Ramirez nodded, and you just gave us the coordinates. Heather asked to meet me. Marcus didn't think I should go, but I needed to see her, not for closure, for clarity. We met at a cafe off Tryon Street, neutral ground. I arrived early, sat with my back to the wall. Old habit, she walked in wearing that same beige parka from when I deployed. Maybe it was symbolic, or maybe she just didn't own many coats. Her hands trembled when she picked up her coffee. I didn't know what Mason was doing, she started. I said nothing. I knew he was shady, but I didn't know it would go this far. I leaned forward. You signed my name, you emptied our accounts, you laughed in our kitchen while another man wore my clothes. Tears welled up. She tried to speak, but I raised a hand. You can apologize, you can cry, but none of it changes what happened, what you did. She looked down. I lost everything. No, I said. You gave it away, and then I left. That night, Ramirez called with an update. Mason pled out. 8 years. Todd's going for a trial. He won't win. Heather agreed to full restitution, confession, and waived all claims to property or pension. I exhaled slowly. No jail. She's cooperating, and technically she didn't initiate the fraud. She just participated. I didn't answer. Ramirez added, you don't have to forgive her, but you should be proud. Because of you, others won't fall into this trap. I stood in the backyard of what used to be our home the next day. The grass had grown wild. The deck I'd built by hand had weathered to gray. I ran my fingers over the wood and whispered goodbye, not to her, but to the life I'd once imagined here. A year had passed. The house was sold. I didn't even return for the closing. I signed the papers from the porch of a cabin tucked into the Blue Ridge Mountains. 10 acres of peace, a creek that whispered like an old friend, and no neighbors in sight. I bought the place with what was left of the house sale and the money Heather returned in the restitution deal. It wasn't a fortune, but it was enough. Enough to start over, enough to build something no one could take from me again. I named my new German Shepherd Shadow. Fitting, really. He followed me everywhere, loyal, silent, watchful, just like I had become. Life was simple now. I took up woodworking, chairs, shelves, cutting boards, nothing fancy, just work that let me feel the grain under my palms and the ache in my back. Work that reminded me I was still building something, even if I wasn't sure what yet. I sold pieces at local markets. Didn't talk much. Didn't need to. People respected silence out here. My pension covered the rest. No debt, no drama, just quiet days and colder nights. And sometimes, and that was enough. Heather never contacted me again. I heard she moved to Asheville. Changed jobs, changed her name back. Maybe she was rebuilding too. I didn't hate her, not anymore. You can't carry that kind of fire forever. It burns you from the inside, but I didn't forgive her either. Forgiveness isn't owed. It's earned, and some debts don't get paid in full. Then came the letter. It arrived in a crumpled envelope, no return address. Inside, a handwritten note. You don't know me, but I know what you did. My husband is in the Navy. We almost lost our home last year to a scam that looked a lot like yours, but the FBI opened our case because of yours. Your testimony made them listen. Thank you. You saved us. You gave us a second chance. No name. Just initials, LR. I read it 3 times, pinned it to the fridge. Sometimes, on nights when the wind howls across the ridge, I pour a cup of black coffee, lean against the frame of my front door, and reread it. Because that's the thing about stories. Even when they're born in betrayal, they can end in redemption. I didn't start this fight, but I damn sure finished it. And if you're hearing this, if you're staring down your own storm, feeling alone, betrayed, gutted, hear me now. You can come back from it. Stronger, sharper, smarter. You just have to be willing to rebuild with fire in your gut and steel in your spine. Because sometimes, justice doesn't knock, it marches in. If this story hit home, like and subscribe to Revenge Pulse. We drop new stories every day, raw, real, and impossible to forget. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Until next time, stay sharp, stay standing, and never stop rebuilding.